Hello folks, I'm L.A. Little and this is your daily TA Wrap. Where we take a look at these markets and we do it from a neoclassical perspective each time, asking ourselves what happened today and what does it tell us about tomorrow. I do this show 4 times a week, Monday through Thursday, live at 9 o'clock Eastern Time here from the base of the Rocky Mountains. I do a show on Sunday as well. It's a weekly show. We try to look at a little bit broader perspective, you know, to kind of set the tone for the coming week. Each Sunday night, same time. You can pop questions to me. There's 3 ways. If you're registered on live stream, of course, you can type it in. You can email me, support@TA Today, or you can text it at this number. To get those numbers, just come to TA TV, click on the all channels, and you can get any kind of broadcast information and questions. What happened today? Well, new highs, folks. This market has decided it wants to move up. Industrial 74 higher, 16,272. Industrials are the only major index now that hasn't settled at new highs for the year, still down on the year. S&P's tacked on 9, new high, new all-time closing high, as a matter of fact. Not a new high, but an all-time closing high, 1854 and a quarter, up 9. Composite, new high, 4318, 93. Industrials, we already talked about. NDX was up 23, also another new high there. And the Russell gets over the high, the swing point high, breaks out 6 higher, 11,088. Gold down a little bit more today. It looks like it's up a little bit after hours. It wasn't a lot going on elsewhere. Bonds are back into that big bar now. Dollar couldn't get going. And even though we got new highs, you know, there's always going to be worries, and we're going to have some worries tonight as well. So we'll tackle those as we go through these charts. But if we take a look to start with, I'm going to start with the Russell. Why the Russell? Well, because the Russell typically either leads up or down. It's the small caps. We've had a lot of worries about economic numbers. Well, looking at this chart, you can't tell that because we essentially, you know, worried ourselves lower, right? ABCD structure, didn't quite finish it. And then we go straight back up, and we've got an ABCD structure on the way back up. And that one measures about 3.5% higher than tonight's close. So there's a pretty good push going on here. Main thing tonight, over the highs, right? Closes over the highs. Last night it tested it. Remember, it left volume. We were talking about it probably will come back and do it again soon. Well, soon was the next day. A little bit less volume today. But if you look at the volume on this bar, right, at 354 versus that one at 337, you're actually going to have a confirmed breakout. In other words, volume's expanding as you go over to high. It gives you a slightly higher percentage that move will continue. Now that's one swing point on this time frame. We also have a break on the weekly. So if I pull the weekly up, and actually it's kind of interesting, it lines up almost the same in terms of the breakout, but let's change the screen here and do it again. This breakout, that one's clean now. It does look like it's going to hold for the week. It's going to have the volume, right? It's compared to this one. And because there was very light volume on that top on this, and I think that was December, right? Let's see. Yeah, end of December. So confirmed breakout weekly, confirmed breakout daily, unless we get a heck of a pullback tomorrow. The weekly will stick. What does that mean? Well, that's multiple swing points, multiple time frames. And what does that typically mean? Well, that usually means you can expect 2 to 3 bars higher, not on this time frame, but over on your weekly time frame. So if we look at the weekly again, 2 to 3 bars higher on this time frame. That could take us up all the way to that projection number that we're talking about. So Russell, pretty strong, pretty strong. Now let's go to the SPX, right? Let's look at the broad S&P 500, the largest cap stocks in the S&P, the top 500, had resistance, breaks over it tonight. And what does this one do? Well, this one breaks over that swing point, this swing point. That's going to be 2 swing points on the same time frame, so that's multiple swing points, should lead 2 to 3 bars on this time frame. Now, on the weekly, you know, when we were just talking about the Russell, you can actually get, you know, a push up, another pull back, and then another push up. You know, those 2 to 3 bars, all you need is just some higher closes on the weekly. You got 5 days in a week, though, so that thing can actually move up and down within the week and still be pushing higher on that time frame. This one's suggesting 2 to 3 bars higher on this time frame. It is a suspect breakout, 37.7, 35.4. Doesn't have the volume, so it's going to come up as a red arrow, gives it a slightly lower chance of continuation, about 3 to 5%. Actually, it's about 2 to 5, depending on the type of a breakout it is in terms of bearish, bullish, and in terms of time frames. So those two indexes have now joined what we already had happening with the NDX. Right, that one already broke out a long time ago. This one never has even come back to retest and regen, and it still shows sideways. This is one of the caveats of this particular model, is that the model doesn't always, on these beeline moves, doesn't always catch up immediately to the reality of what's happening. So that one shows us sideways. If you go over to the Nasdaq Composite, it's already in a bullish mode on that breakout. This one shows the clean, you know, the breakout, the retest regen. Remember, we talked about this as a bullish structure, and it's turned out to be exactly that. So it goes over that, back under it, tested here, and now starts to leg higher, new high tonight. Everything's clicking, right? The only one that isn't clicking is the Dow Jones. And I've reminded, you know, previously I've talked about this. I'm going to pull a weekly chart over. The same setup that we had back last year, you know, where we had a push up, right? So we get some sort of a retrace, we push up, make a new high, another retrace, we push up this particular one. The rest of the market, all the other indexes had broken out, every one of them. This was the only one that hadn't. And as this one climbed all the way back to the top, it got right to the top, tested the swing point high, and then that's when we got the failure. Well, this setup looks almost identical to what we have now. Dow's lagging. Dow's going to slowly climb back up, try to get to its highs here on the daily, which is up here, which is what, about 200, 300 more points. A little less than that, 250 points. So another 250 points, get it back up to the highs. And what will that do? Well, that probably will allow the S&P to do that legging we were just talking about. 2 to 3 bars. 2 to 3 bars here, get you back up to there. Maybe that's where the rollover happens, right? And you come back, you do the retest regen. Folks, the reason I keep bringing these things up is because, and I'm going to go back to the S&P real quick, this thing stretched. It hasn't taken a break anywhere. Right? Now you're breaking swing point highs. That's probably going to give you some juice, or at least it should give you some juice to carry a little bit farther, but you're already stretched. I mean, you've done a lot of work to get here, right? This is a 6% move in 3 weeks on a major index. That's hard to just keep going. Now, you know, it may surprise us and, you know, all the short covering comes in or whatever happens and this thing just really take off. Odds are it's going to get up there, come back, and then immediately, you know, within 6 bars, when I'm saying immediate, to me that's 6 bars, come back, do the retest regen off this swing point high. So in other words, I'm thinking, you know, you leg up and then you come back in. And then that potentially, right, assuming it holds here, gives you the impetus to move on up and finish off this big ABCD structure It's kind of begging to be finished anyway. So that to me is kind of the view. That's the way I'm viewing this market now. Big thing though, breaking out, got over it. Now you got to leg higher. You got to prove. See, every time we look at these markets, we're setting up the next test, because everything about the market is a test. And so when we accomplish one test, we get over the swing point high. Now we set up the conditions to make us believe it. It doesn't mean that we don't take a position, because if we didn't take a position, we never would, because there's always another test. But as I've been telling members for quite a while, and I think I've been portraying here on the show, this market just wants to climb. It just keeps trying, right? Remember we tested here with volume? We left volume at the highs. Here we are coming into a Friday, got a break over the highs. You can bet your bottom dollar it's going to test that. Probably tomorrow. All right? Which brings me to the next point, and that is that there are some drawbacks to this. And the drawbacks to me, really, there's three. It's never easy. I jotted them down here. XLF isn't participating. That's a problem. The bonds keep rocking higher. That's a question mark, right? They shouldn't be going straight up, because usually bonds kind of go the opposite of stocks. Right now they're going with them. Now part of this probably has to do with this, and that's the geopolitical events that are taking place in the Ukraine. Ukraine is a prized possession, if you will, still of the old Russia-Soviet Union. You know, it's been in the Soviet Union sphere for a long time. Soviet Union really doesn't want to give it up. Russia doesn't want to give it up. There is a large Russian population that has ties to Russia in Ukraine. I mean, even though they've had all these protests going on for a long time, there's a reasonably large, I don't know what the numbers are, but I think 30–40% that are probably on the opposite side, wanting close ties with Russia. What's Russia going to do? Are they just going to back off? Is Putin going to do nothing? You know, this, if there's something from the exogenous, right, event type thing, this is it. I don't know that it's going to happen. Usually these things don't happen, but we got to watch it, right? This could be a serious problem. Right now, Russia's kind of rattling the sabers, putting 150,000 troops on, on the border there, putting them at a heightened alert, war games kind of stuff. We got to watch it, right? And I believe that's what's moving the bonds right now. XLF, well, that's a whole different story. So let's pop over to the sectors next. When I looked at the sectors last night, they were kind of divided. They were about half and half. Half of them trying to pull back, about half of them saying, hey, we're just going to move on up. That really didn't change. The one notable exception was here, and this was basic materials. Basic materials had a failure on price and volume at the swing point high and said, forget it, I'm moving higher anyway, right? And did. And actually, did I get that right? Because it actually changed. 46.57. Huh. That quote, what am I missing here? I don't know. I'll have to look at that one, because I thought it failed, but I see a change in trend here. So this is one for me to investigate when I get off the air. Anyway, I thought it failed on price and volume. Maybe it didn't. Maybe there's something wrong over here I'm looking at. This thing went higher. And anyway, went higher. I'll have to look at that. The one that worries me is this one, is the XLF. XLF can't get going, right? This is a big sector, a big important sector. Excuse me. If this guy can't get out of this range and get up here and test this bar, right, this is a problem, and this is a big indication that that breakout will come back, right, if these can't get moving. Today they are up slightly, nothing big. You got a slight move up today, but that top is up at 21.87. Yeah, that's another full percent just to get there. So 21.87, we're at 21.56. That's 21. Yeah, that's another percent just to get there. So these guys are going to have to move, or I'm going to really get concerned if they don't move pretty soon. Tomorrow's Friday. Tomorrow we got GDP numbers. We got, it's the end of the month again, so you got a lot of numbers coming out. And I really believe it's mostly about economics now. Yellen did her thing today. She didn't rock the boat. We got the highs. But you got GDP. You got, there's something else out in the morning. I don't have it on the tip of my tongue. You got a bunch of numbers coming out of Japan, out of China. PMI, flash PMIs will be coming out this weekend in China, next week in Europe and here. That's going to be a big driver as to what happens with this market. So you got to keep your eyes on that. Let's pop over real quick to the TLT. And the TLT is back into this bar. That big volume bar's got high. It's halfway into it. It's going to the top. So the TLT is going to go up and test the top, and that push right now it doesn't have the volume. When it gets there, we'll see. I suspect it won't have the volume, and we'll stay in this range. And that range right now is really from here to here with two ranges inside, this one and the one up here. It's going to the top. It's going to test the top. I suspect it will fail at that top for now. Do some sort of consolidation, maybe come back as far as the lows, right? But this actually looks like it wants to go higher, even beyond this time frame. And what I'm talking about is if I pull it over and put it on a weekly, it's pushing here with a nice push back up. Looks to me like it's going to test. Remember, it tested these highs. If it gets over these highs, that's another. Well, it'll be a break of this high on the daily. That will be a break of this high on the weekly. That's going to be some pretty serious business, and there's another one sitting right there. This thing could climb all the way back up here, 114, and I'm sure nobody believed that was going to happen with the Fed doing its tapering. So bonds are kind of an anomaly here, if you will, in that they want to rise while the market's rising. And that's kind of an odd case. Dollar can't get going. This pullback tonight should help gold a little bit. Gold is just hanging there. Gold doesn't want to pull back very much, but it's got no volume either. So gold looks like it's going to try to test this high volume high again. It missed it today. 129.07 got to 128.80. So I would expect that kind of a test to come up. Another anomaly is copper. Copper keeps falling. And if I pull this and put it on a weekly, you can see here that this thing has been in a big range for a long time. A big wide range about that far. You kind of got the bottom half here, the top half up there. And it's back in it tested into the top half, it's back down here. It looks to me like it's going to come back to these lows again. So they used to say, and I don't know if it's true anymore, they used to say that, copper is kind of the primary metal that you watch because copper's so tied to the housing. But if you go look at housing could care less. Housing's on a rock and rolling on the way up now, breaking off a swing point high. It's got volume, it's got everything going for it. That's on the weekly, on the daily, it's over the highs. This thing is pushing, and it's pushing pretty nicely. So, if copper is reflecting, at least reflecting our domestic market, there's a total disconnect there. Maybe it's reflecting China. I don't know. I don't know what it's reflecting. We're talking about China. Let's go to the world markets next. And last night we were talking about, I think it was the FXI we looked at, and somebody had asked me about it, and I said, well, that was the place to buy last night. Of course, if you didn't buy it last night, and of course I do the show after hours, you had to buy a gap up today, and that's always hard. This thing's going to go test these highs, and this is the Chinese, the Hang Seng in Hong Kong, and if we go to the actual index, you can see the breakout. So this is leading that ETF. It tested and tested 3 times this bar. Bottom of that bar was 22,297. Tested it 3 different occasions. Couldn't break it down. What happens? Flip it around, take it the other way. Hong Kong now is finally going to do a full push back up right? It did a retest, tried to regenerate. That was what this was all about. But it hit it with a lot of volume, right? When you hit something with volume, you're usually going to come back and try again. Took it about, what, 6 weeks here? 6 days. And now it's back up there breaking out. That's saying that this thing does not want to regenerate lower. Conversely, okay, if it's not going to regenerate lower, then what's it doing? It's going the other way, of course. Where's the target? And looks to me like that target is here. So if I project that out, that's over these highs, right? Multiple swing point highs. Just like you broke them on the way down, you got escalation down. This thing looks like it's going to go try to break them on the way up and potentially get escalation on the way back up. So Hong Kong really starting to do something now in terms of the world markets. Let me quickly look at my buddies up in Toronto. They were trying to pull back. They're going to be a buy on that pullback, and boy, they just want to go sideways. They don't even want to come back and do the retest regen. I'd still be looking for this area, but they may not give it to you. So if you're waiting on that, you know, keep watching it. But right now, this is trying to correct sideways instead of down. That's kind of the correction scheme going on there, at least for now. Let's look over at my buddies in Australia. Australia also was trying to pull back and are pulling back. Okay, so Australia, now this one, if you're in that market, this was a nice breakout, because the breakout here came on huge volume. So a pullback into this area is a buy, and you're almost there. It looks like it's going to try to get into it tonight. So if you're sitting over in Australia thinking about buying that index, tonight's a good night to watch it, or today your time. Brazil had a big day up today. Let's see if I got the quotes on it today. I'm not sure. Sometimes they come in. Yeah, it did come in. Look at that big spike. We were talking about it trying to come down and test this one more time. Well, finally, you're actually getting some behavior here that looks good. Problem is, as I look at this, I knew it was up big today, but I didn't know what the volumes looked like. You got no volume. So this one, although it's going to help everything in terms of like emerging markets, it's probably going to fail when it gets up to the highs and test. So Brazil is a so-so. Let me look at my last three. I always like to look at the mainland in Europe. Okay, so the CAC pushes lower, pushes with volume. That high, it doesn't matter. What's matter is this one. So that's 43.56, 43.54. So you test into it 1.4 with volume. That one's going to do more testing. Right now it's flipped around, left a nice little hammer type head, so that means it's going to try to test the top next. But this one is telling you that it's probably going to come back down here and test into this bar here one more time. So yeah, probably will. Okay, so that's the CAC. So that one can get a little push tonight, but then probably comes back, especially if it gets no volume when it gets to the highs. Okay, so big reversal on the FTSE, same sort of thing. And the FTSE did it with 9.8, 8.6. Yeah, that's a good reversal. FTSE's going back to the highs. And the DAX. So the German market also pushes down. So it comes into a big volume high. 93.36. That looks like a good reversal too. So 2 out of the 3 have good reversals. You know, it's kind of amazing me that the CAC is stronger than the DAX, but I suspect you'll see that get corrected, because the CAC's economy is nothing like the German market. It's all mirrors over there. So, all right, let's see what kind of questions we got. I had one emailed to me, nothing over here. So let me take the one emailed to me. So the question is hi LA, PANW. Let's see what this guy is. So let me flip over and pull up. Type that chart in. and see what we got here. While I'm there, let me take a quick look at it in the cube and see what we're dealing with. Alright, so technology stock, networking communications, Palo Alto Networks. So we're doing a revenue growth of 48. Earnings is nothing. I guess they probably, sometimes these just don't get reported yet. Short interest is 6. Okay, so let's go back to the chart. Okay, when is the earnings? Earnings were 224. So they just had earnings. 224, that was this pop? Yeah. Okay, so it popped up on earnings. And so the question is, where do you see it finding support? So he wants to buy it or wants to add to his position. Okay, anytime I see, you know, a nice big vertical rise like you had here, and then you see this kind of pop on earnings and it sells straight down, it tells me it's probably going to come all the way back to some serious support, and that looks like right there where the charts are showing you. You came into, now we have something to measure against, so let's see what these numbers are. So we did 2 million today back into 2.6. So I would expect you'll get a little bounce out of here, and it's going to be a jagged move here for a little bit. This is going to be resistance on the way up. You got a good chance at a bounce here tomorrow because it came into this and didn't have the volume. Now it did stay into it, so if it does start working down lower tomorrow, just watch it, because it's going to try to get all the way back to here. So that's your first line of support, and it's a pretty good one. And that's right at 40, it looks like. Now, no, not 40, 60, 68. I'm looking on the wrong chart. I've got a different chart up here I was looking at. So 68. So as you come into that price area, 68, 69, that's probably going to be the spot you want to try to grab this thing. But I suspect it's going to drift there. In other words, you come down today, right, you probably get a bounce back up to this bar, the bottom of it, fell, then you finally make you move back down into this area. So I think it's going to take it a little while to get there, but that's the area. This is a nice looking chart. Let me see what the longer term charts look like. Yeah, so the top of this big bar is 60, so that's at 70 here on the weekly. So anywhere from about 68.50 to 70 is going to be the spot. And you got nice overlap where the TA Today charts are showing you support here and on your daily. That's always good. And yeah, it's a fairly new issue, so that's why those earnings are like they are. So you got a breakout volume. This is a nice looking chart. I got to take a better look at this for myself. Thanks for bringing it up to us. So that's a good looking one. All right, let's see what else we got here. Anything else? Nothing else. Okay, so looks like my time's up too. Okay, tomorrow's Friday. I don't do a show tomorrow night. You'll have to wait till Sunday to get my thoughts, but it's a weekly close, right? You got breakouts. The worst thing you could see tomorrow is those breakouts fail, right? That would be the worst case, right? So you get your breakouts and then you give them right back. So tomorrow it's important that this market find a way to at least hold here and potentially start crawling higher. And I know that's a tall order given how far it's already came, but that is what it needs to do to prove this move is going to have some legs, as it should. That's what the market's telling us. It should move higher. Let's see if it does. If it doesn't, it's telling us that we're just too stretched and we're going to have to consolidate, even though we've gotten these highs, right? We do an immediate retest, right? And that could happen tomorrow easily, actually, given the press that we've already done. But it's positive. You know, any way you look at it, it's positive. It's just a question of how fast you're going to move. And I like what I'm seeing. And if you're short this market, you need to rethink your position. Folks, thanks for joining me. I'm glad you could. Tell a friend, tell two. As always, I'm LA. This is and was your daily TA wrap. Have a great night. Take care. Good night.